שיר למעלות, אשא עיניי להרים, מאין יבוא עזרי? עזרי מאדוני, עושה שמיים וארץ, אל ייתן למוט רגליך, אל ינום שומרך, הנה לא ינום ולא ישן שומר ישראל. אדוני שומרך, אדוני צילך, ליד ימינך. יומם השמש לא יככה, והריח בלילה. אדוני ישמורך מכל רע, ישמור את נפשך. אדוני ישמור צאתך ובואך, מעתה ועד עולם. שיר למעלות, אשא עיניי להרים, מאין יבוא עזרי? עזרי מאדוני, עושה שמיים וארץ, אל ייתן למוט רגליך, אל ינום שומרך, הנה לא ינום ולא ישן שומר ישראל. אדוני שומרך, אדוני צילך, ליד ימינך. יומם השמש לא יככה, והריח בלילה. אדוני ישמורך מכל רע, ישמור את נפשך. אדוני ישמור צאתך ובואך, מעתה ועד עולם. הנה לא ינום ולא ישן שומר ישראל. אדוני שומרך, אדוני צילך, ליד ימינך. יומם השמש לא יככה, והריח בלילה. אדוני ישמורך מכל רע, ישמור את נפשך. אדוני ישמור צאתך ובואך, מעתה ועד עולם. שיר למעלות, אשא עיניי להרים, מאין יבוא עזרי? עזרי מאדוני, עושה שמיים וארץ, אל ייתן למוט רגליך, אל ינום שומרך, הנה לא ינום ולא ישן שומר ישראל. אדוני שומרך, אדוני צילך, ליד ימינך. יומם השמש לא יככה, והריח בלילה. אדוני ישמורך מכל רע, ישמור את נפשך. אדוני ישמור צאתך ובואך, מעתה ועד עולם. So this Tehillim says, Yomam Hashemesh lo yakeka ve'yareach balayla. King David says, Yomam Hashemesh lo yakeka ve'yareach balayla. What does that mean? Yomam, daily, the sun is not going to hit you, and the moon at night. What are we talking about? So when we come to this book called The Kabbalistic Writings on the nature of masculine and feminine, we get a little bit of backstory behind the sun and the moon that we don't necessarily get in the 5 books of Moses, in Bereshit, in what they call in English Genesis. We don't get the backstory behind the sun and the moon. Okay, what we get in Genesis is we get these verses that let's have a look. Hold on. What we get in Genesis, right? And I'm coming out of a well-worn 5 books of Moses here. We call in English the Chumash, the 5. This is the Art Scroll Publisher Stone Edition. There are different translations, but what do we have? We have Bereshit bara Elohim et hashamayim v'et haaretz. In the beginning of God's creating the heavens and the earth. V'aretz hayta tov v'vo v'choshech al pnei tahom v'ruach Elohim merachefet al pnei hamayim. When the earth was astonishingly empty and the darkness upon the face of the depth, and the divine presence hovered over the surface of the water. V'yomer Elohim yihi or v'yihi or. And God said, "Let there be light," and there was light. Okay, we don't have a luminary yet. We don't have a sun yet, right? We have the beginning of of God's creating the heavens and the earth. We have yihi or, let there be light. Yihi or. V'yar Elohim et ha'or ki tov, v'yavdel Elohim bein ha'or v'bein ha'choshech. God said, "Let there be light," and there was light. God saw that the light was good, and God separated between light and darkness. Okay, in Hebrew, or light and choshech, darkness. Okay, these are the first words that I'm going to give you here as words to know. Or light and choshech, darkness. V'yikra Elohim la'or yom, l'choshech kara laila, v'hi erev v'hi voker yom echad. God called the light day, and to the darkness he called night. So we've got lots of phrases over here, and we're going to get into the kabbalistic, right? The kabbalistic writings on the nature of masculine and feminine. So far, we've seen a duality, right? We've seen or, and then we've seen choshech, right? So we have shamayim and aretz. We have the creation of, right? The creating of the heavens and the earth, right? And the earth was astonishingly empty in darkness, right? We've got choshech. We've got choshech before we have or mentioned. We have darkness mentioned before light. We have that darkness with darkness upon the face of the depth. Choshech al pnei tahom. Then we have ruach Elohim merachefet al pnei hamayim. So we've got water. We've got what do we have here? Do we have a setting of the scene in which the creation happens? Setting of the scene, in other words, a description of what's going on. The earth is astonishingly empty, and darkness is on the surface of the depth, and divine presence hovered on the surface of the water. This is like the setting the scene. Is this like, what are we imagining is going on, so to speak? How can we imagine any of this stuff? Anyways, but that's probably the mental faculty that's the most akin to what's activating when we're reading Bereshit, when we're reading Genesis. God said, "Let there be light." One question is, who was God talking to? It's utterance. Is when we say, we're talking about vocal cords vibrating. Vibrating what? Vibrating themselves, vibrating, and air around it vibrating, and then there's a recipient of that sound. The recipient of the sound has in the ear structure a receptacle, another vibration, right? speech is a vibration. It's not just a vibration of air. It's also, if you look at the anatomy of the ear and the inner ear, the middle ear, the outer ear, vibrations translating into the neural impulses processed by the nervous system, meaning placed upon it, right? There's a lot going on in shmiya, in hearing, and in speech, right? And then we have different kinds of speech. We have Vayikra here, okay? Vayikra Elohim La'or. First we had Vayomer Elohim Yihi Or. So we can translate it as God said, Vayomer. But what's the difference between said and called? Like calling Vayikra Elohim La'or Yom. L'choshech Kara Laila. Okay? We have Vayikra Kore, calling. Calling in English can be like, I'm calling somebody from far away, hey! Or I'm giving something a name, right? People always ask me, what is this? Is it a ukulele? Is it a little guitar? So inside of it, it says ukulele leho, which I guess is the company that makes it. And it's, is it a guitar lele? Or is it a ukatar? So what are you going to call it, right? So we call it V'ikra Elohim La'or Yom. God called, here it says called to the light day. Yom! He's calling to the light? Like he's addressing the light that he spoke into being? He's addressing the light? Yom. And he's saying it to you, Yom. Well, we said in this Tehillim before, we said, Yomam Hashemesh lo yakeka Yomam Hashemesh lo yakeka v'yarech balayla. It's a daily. You're going to learn Hebrew if you stick around here. Daily Yomam, not Yomam, Yomam, daily Yom, right? He called it Yomam Hashemesh, daily lo yakeka, isn't going to hit you. What's Shemesh? What is this Shemesh? We don't have anything Shemesh here. We have an Or is called Yom. And then later we have Shemesh. Let's keep going here. In Yeshivish, okay, which is kind of a language that's spoken in yeshivas and seminaries, we'd say weiter. We're going to go forward. We're going to move forward. Weiter. Might come from Yiddish, might have some Germanic language influence from the diaspora. But you're going to hear me say, let's go weiter, let's go forward. V'ikra Elohim la'or yom, l'choshech kara laila, v'hi erev, v'hi voker, yom echad. Right? It says, God saw the light was good, and God separated between the light and the darkness. God called the light day, and to the darkness called light, and there was evening and there was morning, one day. Yom echad. Yom echad. One day. One day. So there's no mention of sun. We have mention of morning. We have mention of evening. We have mention of light. We have mention of darkness. We have mention of day. We have mention of night. And we don't have any celestial bodies. Let's go on to the second day. V'yomer Elohim yihi rakia betoch hamayim, v'hi mavdil bein mayim lemayim. And God said, let there be firmament in the midst of the waters, and let it separate between water and water. V'ya'as Elohim et harakia v'yavdel bein hamayim asher mitachat l'rakia uvein hamayim asher mi'al l'rakia. V'hi chen. So we have, and God made the firmament. So before we had this speaking, let there be light. That was an act of speech. Then we had an act of calling out or labeling, right? Kriya. That's Vikra Elohim Laor Yom. So it's another kind of action that God has done. We have a V'yomer, we have a speaking, we have a Vikra, we have a calling, and then we have V'yas. Okay, and V'yas is in 7, right? Everything, we're in chapter 1. We're so far we're in chapter 1. We don't know what's going on. Maybe atomic, they're books by nuclear physicists who can say, well, this is this, and this is what's going on there, Big Bang, the string theory, whatever. Just going with a simple translation. Simple translation is, here we have an act of God made the firmaments and separated between the waters which were beneath the firmament and the water which were above the firmament, and it was so. So he made the firmament. Now we're up to an action of making. V'ya'as Elohim et harakia. And so God made the firmament. And so it was, right? And so it was. Now we have another calling to, or labeling. V'ikra Elohim l'rakia. That's some sounds in rakia and firmament that normal American English, West Coast at least, I don't know, East Coast, Chicago accents, we don't have the raqi, the k, right? Raqi'ah, and ah is the back of the throat. V'yikra Elohim l'raqi'ah shamayim. V'hi erev v'hi voker yom sheni. That's a repetition. I'm not sure if your ear is sensitive to this now. When we said v'hi erev v'hi voker, I can pronounce it a little more. I don't want to shock you with the pronunciation, but v'hi erev v'hi voker, right, and back, yom echad. Now we have v'hi erev v'hi voker yom sheni, right? And there was evening and there was morning, second day. So my tradition is that we sing, right? We sing in Torah learning. And this is how I grew up. There was morning, there was evening, there was morning. There was there was evening, there was morning, right? Right? V'hi erev v'hi voker yom sheni. So in the second day, we've got the making of the firmament, whatever that is, okay? And we have the naming, the calling to the firmament, heaven, shamayim, shamayim. Or we have the labeling of it, shamayim, or we have the calling to it, shamayim, God calling to the firmament. That's the second day. So we've got heavens. We don't have a sun, a moon, stars, clouds. We don't have that stuff yet. Let's go at the third day. Here we go. Vayomer Elohim yikva'u hamayim mitachat hashamayim el makom echad v'tera'eh b'yavasha v'yihi chen. And God said, let the waters beneath the heaven be gathered into one sea, and let the dry land appear. And it was so. So another Yomer, another Ma'amar, another speaking. Okay? There are 10 utterances. We're not going to look at all 10 now, but we're just noting this is another utterance. Then we have calling. Vayikra Elohim liyavasha eretz. Ulamikveh hamayim kara yamim. V'yar Elohim ki tov. Oh, we have another verb here for what God does. God sees. Did we have God sees before? Still we don't have the sun. We did. We have Vayar Elohim et haor ki tov. On the first day we said that God saw that the light was good. Okay? So we have actions going. We have God doing the action of separation, the action of seeing, the action of speaking, the action of calling. So what did he call the dry land? And God called to the dry land earth. Okay, this is how this edition of the This is how this edition of Bereshit, Genesis, is translating. God called to the dry land earth, and to the gathering of water he called seas. And God saw it was good. So before he saw that he saw that the light was good, right? Or right? He saw that the light was good, right? And then he made a separation. Now he saw that it was good. What's the it? Is the separation, right? Because we had that separation of the water, right? The water and the seas and the dry land. And that's a separation. Sea and dry land are separated, right? And you can say, well, look, there's on dry land, there is rain, there are streams, there are clouds, there's precipitation. You say, okay, and still there are seas, right? There's seas, there are islands. Well, we know what a sea, we know what water is, right? Even while there is wetness in dry land and there is aspect of dryness in seas, they're separated. So we have all these things that God is doing. Let's see what happens. God said, "Let the earth sprout vegetation, herbage yielding seed, fruit trees yielding fruit, each after its kind, containing its own seed on the earth." And it was so. Right? So we had God seeing that it was good, and now God saying something else, another saying. I'm going to do that in Hebrew now. V'yomer Elohim, tadshe haaretz deshe, esev mazria zera, etz pri, ose pri lemino, asher zar'o bo, al haaretz, v'hi chen. We have another, I'll give you the next words I want you to learn. V'hi chen, and it was so. Right? So far you've had or and choshech, light and darkness. And I'm going to just give you this one because it repeats a lot. Vayhi chen, and it was so. Okay, so now we have another saying of God's. Now we have an action that the earth is doing, an action of bringing forth. In Yud Bet is 12 in English. Okay, v'yotze haaretz deshe esev mazria zera leminehu ve'etz ose pri asher zar'o bo leminehu v'yar Elohim ki tov v'hi erev v'hi voker yom shlishi. Okay, there's some patterns in the Hebrew now. That which ends verse, I'm going to introduce to you now Hebrew. Pasuk is a verse, is a pasuk. Verse 8 in Hebrew it would be chet. It would be represented by the Hebrew letter chet, the 8th letter of the alphabet. Okay, there is a Hebrew word for the word shmoneh, meaning 8, but when we're looking at Hebrew here, we're using a letter system to represent numbers. So 8 is represented by the 8th letter of the alphabet, chet. V'yikra Elohim l'rakia shamayim, right? Okay, so sorry. Right, so 8 ends with Vayhi voker yom sheni, right? Sorry. Vayhi erev Vayhi voker yom sheni. This phrase Vayhi erev Vayhi voker, this is and there was evening and there was morning. And we have that at the end of each day, right? Of course. So you can get used to that. Vayhi erev evening. Vayhi voker, or in English, in modern Hebrew, they say boker. They would lose the kuf and just collapse it into a kaf. So it's a boker instead of boker. Now, the B and V share the same shape for their letter. And so you'll hear voker or boker, okay? The B and the V exchanging as the first letter of that word, boker, morning. Good morning. Vayhi voker, right? Vayhi erev, vayhi voker yom sheni, and now we had it in Yud Gimel, meaning 13. We had vayhi erev, vayhi voker yom shlishi, and there was evening and there was morning, third day. Still no sun. What do we have here? We have God saying things, calling things, and then we have the earth, bringing forth this vegetation and the details about the vegetation going in there that are packed with meaning. We're not going to unpack those now. What we're trying to get up to is just the kabbalistic writings on the nature of masculine and feminine, right? And bringing that back to what is going on with this Tehillim, where it says, daily the sun won't hit you, and the moon by night. And that's going to have very much to do with this. Okay, so we're at the third day. Let's see. Here we go. The fourth day. The fourth day, what we've been waiting for, so we can jump into here. Right? We want to jump into here. We got to get the fourth day. Vayomer Elohim Yihi me'orot berakia hashamayim lahavdil bein hayom uvein halayla. What does that mean? God said, we have another ma'amar, another saying of God. Remember, there are 10 sayings, there are 10 commandments, and there are 10 sayings that God spoke when God in the Genesis, right, in the creation. God said, let there be luminaries in the firmament of the heaven to separate between the day and the night. So now we have another kind of separation, right? Before we had, God made the firmament to separate between the waters on the second day, right? That were beneath the firmament and the waters which were above the firmament. We had that action of making a firmament, right? And the firmament, right, separated between waters. Now we have luminaries in the firmament of the heaven to separate between day and night. Well, we had day and night, right? Day was what light was called, and night was what darkness was called. And darkness was already there, in the very, 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 very second pasuk. Remember what a pasuk is? A verse, right? In the very second pasuk, we had darkness. Then we had light, right? Spoken into existence. Then we had them being called day and night. We haven't had a separator between day and night. Wait a second. Day is light and night is dark. Does that mean we didn't have a separation between light and dark? We had light and we had dark, but we didn't have a separation between them? Were they mixed together? Were they one, light and dark? Before we had the separation between day and night, we had a separation between waters above and waters below. We had a separation of waters and dry land. And now we come on the fourth day to the luminaries in the firmament of the heaven to separate between day and night. We'll do it again in Hebrew. Pasuk Yud Dalid, okay? Pasuk, verse, Yud Dalid, meaning Yud 10, and Dalid 4. I don't want to confuse you. Try to tell me if I'm bringing in TMI, too much information. Verse 14, Yud Dalid, Pasuk Yud Dalid. V'yomer Elohim, Yihi me'orot berakia hashamayim lahavdil bein hayom uvein halayla. V'hayu le'otot le'mo'adim le'yamim u'le'shanim. The verse says, And God said, let there be luminaries in the firmament of the heaven to separate between the day and the night, and they shall serve as signs for the festivals and for the days and the years. I get the second half of that verse in Hebrew. So the luminaries in the firmament of the heavens were for what? Lahavdil, to separate. Between what? Bein yom uvein halayla. Hayom v'halayla, sorry. Between the day and the night. The day and the night. Which, the last time we had that light was called day and darkness was called night. Why not just leave them as they're called? You know what I'm saying? Why not just call darkness, darkness? Why call it night? Why call light day? And if there's nothing to separate them, what's going on? I put all that in the I don't know, I don't need to know. If I need to know, I will be shown. In other words, not even going to look for explanation on that. Not looking for explanation. What I am looking for is balance, right? So if there's balance between masculine and feminine, I'd like to know that. I'd like to embody that. So get here. Before we can get here, we're going to get right in there right now. We've got these luminaries, okay? Luminaries are called me'orot. Remember the word for light? Or, right? Yehi or, let there be light. I want you to learn that one. Yehi or vayehi or. Or. Think of the English word or. Don't think of the meaning of it, just same sound. Or light. Or light. So we've got these luminaries, which are called, what did we say they're called? Me'orot, luminaries. From lumen, right, illuminate, light. Vehi la'otot le'mo'adim u'liyamim u'l'shanim, the end of that verse 14, and they shall be as signs, what? The luminaries, for the festivals and for the days and for the years. We don't know what signs means. It says otot. Signs, otot. One is an ot, multiple otot. And they shall serve as luminaries in the firmament of the heaven to shine upon the earth. Wahayu lemeorot berakia hashamayim laha'ir al haaretz vehi chen. So they have a purpose. The luminaries' purpose is, first of all, they're signs for festivals. I can imagine the festivals are going to be the festivals that are later going to be referred to in the Torah. We've got festivals like Passover and Sukkot, the tabernacles, Pentecost, I think it's called, Shavuot, right? The weeks, all these different festivals. And at these festivals, different sacrifices are brought. And so, they serve that, and then they also serve as luminaries in the firmament of the heaven to shine upon the earth. Here's a familiar phrase, Wayehi chen, and it was so. Okay, we're going to stop after day 4, and then we're going to get into the Kabbalistic writings on the masculine and feminine. Okay, now let's look at what happened. So, V'ya'as Elohim et shnei ha'me'orot ha'gedolot et ha'ma'or ha'gadol lememshelet hayom ve'et ha'ma'or ha'katon lememshelet halayla ve'et ha'kochavim. Ad kan, till here. We're going to take it to here, and then we're going to move away from the 5 books of Moses and come to the book, the Kabbalistic writings on the nature of masculine and feminine. This is just the background here, okay? Now let's go that in English and Hebrew. This is where it all is going to get juicy, okay? We just going to point out another thing. We had V'yas, which we had before a ya'as. Ya'as means made, okay? We had things that God had made before. We don't have that he made light. We don't have that he made darkness. We don't have that he made himself. We don't have that he made the Spirit of God. We don't have that he made the depth or the water. What do we have that he made? He made the firmament. Okay? He made Vyas, made the firmament, and he made the luminaries. Vyas Elohim et shnei hameorot. Shnei referring to two luminaries. Vyas Elohim et shnei hameorot hagdolot, the two great luminaries. We got to take this really slow here. He made the two great luminaries. We're going to really need you to know that when we get into here now in a minute. He made the two great luminaries. Et ha'ma'or hagadol, the greater luminary to dominate the day. Right? Ha'ma'or hagadol lememshelet hayom, the greater luminary to dominate the day. Ve'et ha'ma'or hakaton lememshelet halayla, and the lesser luminary to dominate the night. Ve'et ha'kochavim, and the stars. What's going on here? Remember pasuk, verse, right? All contained in this verse is a lot. There's a lot contained in every verse. We're going to explore really, really a lot of what's contained in this verse related to kabbalistic writings on the nature of masculine and feminine. We're going to explore it. Maybe even the author of the book will honor us by helping us have a conversation about what she's written here. I think what first thing we want to do is just go through and understand simply what is being said here before coming up with, oh, well, that doesn't make sense because this, and what are you saying, and some kind of urgency to understand, and asking God to just help us set aside everything we think we know, including how smart we have to sound, and like we have things figured out, or we can point to other people who claim to have some knowledge and say, you don't really have so much knowledge. Look, you don't make any sense. And just let that all go so that we can grow. Here we go. God made the two great luminaries. We're just going to keep it in English now. The greater luminary to dominate the day and the lesser luminary to dominate the night and the stars. Well, at the beginning of the pasuk of the verse, it says God made two great luminaries. They're both described as great. In the continuation of the verse, it says the greater luminary to dominate the day and the lesser luminary to dominate the night. Well, are they two great luminaries? Are they both great? Are they both luminaries? They still remain luminaries, but one is now described as a lesser luminary and one a greater. Till now, we've been looking at the psukim, the verses in Bereshit, in Genesis, the first 4 days. Did we even finish the fourth day? We didn't finish the fourth day. Okay, we got how many verses translated? 14, 15. Let's just finish off the fourth day and then we'll dig in. So we're really, our focus there is on that verse. Okay, that verse being 16. In other words, Genesis 1:16. In Hebrew, it's a Perek Aleph, first chapter, Pasuk, verse Tet Zayin 16. Moving forward to 17, and God set them in the firmament of the heavens to give light upon the earth. In Hebrew, that's V'yiten otam Elohim berakia hashamayim la'ir al haaretz. And God set them in the firmament of the heaven to give light upon the earth. Verse 18, to dominate by day and by night, and to separate between the light and the darkness. Limshol bayom uvalayla ulhavdil bein haor uvein hachoshech. So we've got, they're not named, we don't have a name sun, we don't have a name moon, and moon has many names, and sun has several names. They're called great luminaries, then they're called the greater and the lesser luminary, and their purpose is to separate between light and darkness, right? Between day and night. It says earlier in this day, and then it says light and darkness. Remember, light, or. V'yar Elohim ki tov. Now we have something for the first time. Do we? We have, and God saw that it was good. Not the first time. We had that God saw that it was good before. Right? We have had that. We had that before. We saw V'yar Elohim ki tov. In Hebrew, we have to say, and God said that it was good. We had that on the third day, remember? About all the herbage was created on the third day. The vegetation. We're going to end the day like we end the other days. Vayhi erev, vayhi voker, yom revi'i. Vayhi erev, vayhi voker, yom. And there was evening and there was morning. So you can already learn that Hebrew. Vayhi erev, vayhi voker, yom X. Y, Z, right? Every day ends with that phrase. God, help me set aside everything I think I know, that I've maybe looked into this book before. Let's have a little bit about this book. Okay. Says Rebbitzin Tzipora Heller, senior lecturer and author at Neve Yerushalayim. I've had the pleasure and privilege of knowing Sarah Schneider over a decade during this time. She has done what so few of us ever do. She has broken down the borders that deep so many of us. She has broken down the borders that deep so many of us from ever experiencing that elusive something called excellence. I guess that should be keep. Rabbi Yitzchak Ginsburg, not a lightweight when it comes to Torah and Chassidut and Kabbalah. I have been positively impressed by Sarah Schneider's knowledge of Torah in general and Chassidut in particular, as well as her command of the English language and ability to articulate even very abstract ideas clearly and succinctly. In addition, I trust her ability to develop and elaborate concepts into cogent, well-researched expositions. Okay? We're talking about things that come from a language structure that can seem so obscure. Okay, the language of Kabbalah. So if we have a chance here to have those articulated, even very abstract ideas, and when I say very abstract ideas, we're talking about sfirot and partsufim and things like that, and yichudim, and she's going to do it clearly and succinctly. I'm looking forward to that, and I really, really am looking forward to getting even more elucidation, because there's only so much that you can fit into a book. And yet this book has come up so much in my life. I kind of feel like it's a guide. And the times that I've tried to delve into it, I've gone, I don't know what we're saying in most of it. There are parts where I get like, that's the take-home message, okay? That are kind of in the middle parts. Let's do a little about the author, Sarah Yehudit. Susan Schneider is the founding director of a still small voice, a correspondence school that provides weekly teachings in classic Jewish wisdom to subscribers around the world. Sarah is also the author of Eating as Tikkun, got that. Purim Bursts, got that. Evolutionary Creationism, don't have that. She has published articles in several journals and anthologies, including Be'or HaTorah, a journal of science and arts in light of Torah. Torah of the Mothers, Contemporary Jewish Women Read Classic Jewish Texts, and Meditation from the Heart of Judaism. In addition, Ms. Schneider has produced The Golden Thread, a homeopathic remedy based on Talmudic and Zoharic sources. Information can be found at www.thegoldenthread.org. Sarah received her bachelor's degree in molecular, cellular, and developmental biology from the University of Colorado in Boulder. She emigrated to Israel in 1982, where she completed the advanced learning program at Neve Yerushalayim Seminary. Sarah Yehudit currently resides in Jerusalem's Old City and teaches groups and individuals who seek to work with text in a deeply personal way. She can be contacted by email at smlvoice@netvision.net.il. I had the privilege to sit with Sarah Yehudit Schneider when I first came to Israel 20 years ago at the Yakar Center for one class, and I was really touched, and I thought, here's a teacher for me. I then went to a yeshiva where there were only male faculty. I asked, could we have Sarah Yehudit Schneider teach in my capacity as administrator. I thought I maybe had, at this certain seminary yeshiva, maybe some option to be heard of what students might like to learn and who they might like to learn from, and I was told no. So I've met with Sarah Yehudit once or twice, and let's dig in here. Okay. Kabbalistic writings on the nature of masculine and feminine. The author writes, I'm just reading the jacket here. Kabbalistic writings on the nature of masculine and feminine present annotated translation of Kabbalistic texts that paint an authoritative and enlightened vision of how man and woman will relate when they have healed themselves and fixed the world. Whoa! I'm going to do that again. Kabbalistic writings on the nature of masculine and feminine present annotated translations of Kabbalistic texts, that paint an authoritative and enlightened vision of how man and woman will relate when they have healed themselves and fixed the world. That's awesome. That's what I want more of. Based on a Talmudic tale about the sun and the moon, remember the sun and the moon in day 4? We're all based out of there. Jewish mystic writings identify 7 stages of waning and waxing that mark the feminine life cycle. They apply on all scales, from the span of an individual woman's life to the history of creation for the entire period of existence, from the beginning of time to its end, is but a single circuit of the moon. Now that was in parentheses, folks. Again, they apply on all scales from the span of an individual woman's life to the history of creation, from the entire period of existence, from the beginning of time to its end, is but a single circuit of the moon. So the moon has a circuit, okay. In the 7th and final stage, woman stands equal and opposite to man, and they met for the first time as spiritual, intellectual, and emotional mates. There might be a typo here. In the 7th and final stage, woman stands equal and opposite to man, and they met, maybe as they met, for the first time as spiritual, intellectual, and emotional mates. I'm interested in mating. Okay, and I'm not talking about the, doing the deed. I'm talking about mating. And so I'm interested. This perfect marriage has been our perhaps unconscious yearning for 6,000 years. and from its consummation flow all the promised blessings of the world to come. Wow. So there's a consummation flow. No, there's a consummation, and from that consummation flow all the promised blessings of the world to come. She calls something a perfect marriage. She says there's something called a perfect marriage. She uses that phrase. And this perfect marriage, what's getting married here? Don't know. Who's getting married? Don't know. Has been perhaps unconscious yearning. This perfect marriage has been our yearning for 6,000 years. And from its consummation flow all the promised blessings of the world. Okay, so all the promised blessings of the world flow from a consummation of a perfect marriage. These ancient Jewish teachings are profoundly revealed to the dilemmas we face as individuals and communities. They reframe contemporary events in paradigm shifting ways and bring healing, illuminating, and guiding lights to bear on the issues at hand. The fact that people are asking the questions to which these esoteric teachings are the answer means they are ready to hear them and begin digesting their implications. Now we have a quote here. The quote says, "The purpose of this book is twofold. One, to publicize Jewish texts that are indisputably authoritative and that present a spacious and enlightened vision of the evolving relationship of masculine and feminine throughout history. They are teachings with practical implications that can help to guide our life choices and religious expressions along the paths that serve God and good and truth. To enable a direct encounter with kabbalistic source material for persons who lack the skills and resources to access this experience on their own. Its luminous wisdom is sure to inspire a respect and affection for the Torah and its traditions. In Kabbalistic writings on the nature of masculine and feminine, the texts speak for themselves. The authoritative voices are the soul and might of this work. As proof texts, they verify statements made in their name, and as holy texts, they transform all who take them to heart." That's what the author writes, okay? The author, again, I've met, and maybe we'll have the opportunity to talk to her about the text. First, I just want us to go through the text. Then we can go through it again, maybe with questions for the author. How fundamental is this book? Times and times again, when I've tried to learn anything in Kabbalah, I've come across just, whether it's been through the Ramchal, the Rav Moshe Chaim Luzzatto, been through the Ari, been through the Zohar, a lot of people point me to the Baal HaSulam, which is maybe a good place for me to start. Many people said, come here, get rooted here. So what we've done in this lesson so far is we've rooted you in the first 4 days of creation as they're described in the Chumash, in Genesis, in Hebrew Bereshit. Chumash is the 5 books of Moses. And all that background is what we're going to need to open the first page of this book. So far, we've read the jacket. And next time we meet, we will begin. Well, there's a quote on the first page here, and it's from Psalms 29:9. It says, "The voice of God causes the hinds to bear. Kol Adonai Yecholel Ayalot." No context for why that quote is there. It's a part of a pasuk. Then we have the contents. Then we have expanded contents. Then we have acknowledgements. Then we have preliminaries. Preliminaries for Preliminaries on gender is relative. Preliminaries, map is not the territory. Up to, we've got 35 pages of preliminaries. And then we've got the two great lights, okay, on page 37. That's chapter 2, okay? And the two great lights is rooted in that fourth day of creation. So if you're interested in joining us on this journey, go ahead and contact me over WhatsApp, and I'll update you when we're going to come out with our next class. You can WhatsApp me at +972 58 477 5306. That's +972 58 477 5306.